Hello, everyone. This is Maya Zahira with psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And we are now starting our YouTube live that happens on the first, I had to think for a second, Thursday of the month. First 5 minutes, we're going to wait for people to join. So if you're watching the replay, shout out to you. And if you're anxious, if you want to hear some chit chat, hang around. If you're anxious to get into the material, fast forward 5 minutes or so, and we will let people join. So always at the beginning when people are joining, I like to give some announcements so that we're not just sitting here staring at each other. So first of all, those of you who are already here, go ahead and let us know where you're joining from. And I think I forgot to mention our topic for today is religious curses explained. So this is not going to be about religious bashing in any way, shape, or form. The truth is that every spiritual path has people that misuse the spiritual powers in ways to harm others. And we're going to talk about that today. So I'm very excited about this topic. We have Grace Walker here, 4570 here with us today. Evelyn. Hi, everyone. Hi, Maya from the Netherlands. Good to see you. So let's go over a few announcements as more people join. Okay, so as always, if you would like more information on all of my offerings, free, low cost, and my regular programs, all of that, you can find information at my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. There's information about my books, and those are very low cost. So if you're on a tight budget, that's a great way to start. And then also, I have 2 programs, and they're both open right now. The first one is a self-study program. If you feel that you are experiencing any type of spiritual warfare, this could be a good program for you. And you work through the course content on your own at your own pace. It's very comprehensive. I think those of you who are in that program would agree. And then there's my second program, which is the way that you can work with me directly. It's a group mentoring program called Spiritual Empowerment Academy. You, as an Academy member, you actually have access to the self-study program, plus a whole other very comprehensive library, plus live classes with me on Zoom, and the ability to ask me questions several times a week to get to the bottom of your situation. All of that information is on my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. So what time are we at? Okay, we're going to wait 1 more minute so that it's exactly 5 minutes, and then we will get started. Sanjay, hello, good to see you. So while we're waiting, let's start the conversation. Do you suspect, or maybe even know, that you have been the target of religious curses? In other words, even in a very basic way, is there someone in your life who has prayed against you or prayed against your free will? So let's start a discussion. I know it takes a minute for chat comments to come through, and it is time to start. It's funny, I'm always trying not to slurp, and I always do. Sorry, guys. Okay, so as we get into our topic, just a reminder that this is a casual conversation. I don't edit these at all. This is just a way that I like to connect with our community once a month and share some important information. So that's what we are doing here today. So yes, there will be some chit chat. Yes, there also is very potent information. I have 2 pages of lesson plans right here to share with you all. So I'm just pointing that out because sometimes we have people who visit the channel who are expecting like a polished lesson with me with a whiteboard, and there's no chit chat. But anybody who's ever joined a YouTube live knows that there's chit chat. We're here to hang out together and have some fun and also talk about these topics. So if that resonates with you, come on in. Evelyn says, prayed against my free will? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think almost everyone could say yes to that. I know I could. Okay, so I'm going to be glancing at my notes here and there. Today, we are talking about something that many people sense, but don't have the language for. How certain religious practices can act like a form of psychic attack. So just to point out again, this is not an anti-religious video. We're not going to be bashing any religions at all. The fact is that every spiritual path has some good, and every spiritual path has people who misuse it. We also, whether you're here live or watching the replay later and commenting, we're not going to be doing any religious debating about how like such and such religion is the right religion, you know, so and so is Lord or whatever. I'm just going to delete those because that's not helpful. That's not helpful for our discussion. Okay. And the truth is that every religion, even the ones that are considered like mainstream, highly accepted, every religion has people who use the religious practices to curse others. So this might be an uncomfortable conversation for some. And I definitely welcome constructive ideas for sure, but we're not going to be debating. No religious debates. That's just not my style. The other thing, before we get into like breaking down 5 examples, 5 types of religious curses, the other thing that I want to say is just FYI, in case you hadn't figured this out about me, one of my personal values is religious tolerance. So in my personal life, I do my very best to be just very tolerant of whatever people believe. As long as they're not using it to curse me, I'm okay with people believing anything. I actually have always loved diversity. So that's another one of my values. So I think I'm actually a really good person to teach this content because I don't have I'm not slanted that this particular religion is the good one and all the other ones are bad. I have a very balanced perspective. So just wanted to let you know that to give a little bit of context. Margaret says, hi, I'm from Ireland. Oh my gosh, so wonderful to have someone from Ireland. We have lots of people that I connect with in the UK and some Netherlands and Sweden, but I haven't connected with very many people in Ireland. So I'm very excited that you're here. David says, religion is a bummer. And I would say it can be. Yeah, it definitely can be. My perspective, though, again, going back to the religious tolerance, my perspective being someone who's religiously tolerant and has empathy and compassion for like people are practicing religious faiths usually because that's bringing them comfort. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And I can relate to that, even if I don't practice that particular faith. And at the same time, I can hold the opposing truth that at the exact same time, yes, in a lot of ways, religion is a bummer. It can be a bummer, and it can be used to support all sorts of atrocities, which we're not going to get into today because we could go down that rabbit hole. We're going to just stay focused with the examples of religious curses. So if you can think of any ways that you feel that you have been cursed by someone practicing any religion, mainstream or not, definitely share that. I would love to see that in the comments. Margaret says, lovely to join this conversation. Evelyn says, I'm sure people mean well by praying for someone, but it doesn't feel right. Yes. Yeah. And Margaret says, I think religion is a private affair, in my opinion. Yep. Yeah, I think it's private. I think everyone has their own way. Okay, so why this is important. When weaponized, religion can become a form of spiritual warfare, causing real damage. Understanding this can help you reclaim your own power. So maybe I would reword that and say religious practices, because saying religion in general can become spiritual warfare. Yes, that's true. That's a whole other topic of like wars being waged in the name of religion. That's spiritual warfare also. But we're going to be talking more about people's personal practices, praying against others, and some other ways, other aspects of religious curses that you may not have thought of. So let's read comments. Margaret, oh, sorry, I already read yours. Yeah. We have a comment about Hinduism. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Before we get into the 5 examples, I want to tell you a story. And I welcome your stories as well. And also, if you're watching the replay, I welcome your stories in the comments. Okay, so this story, I went to a Catholic conference a couple of years ago. I was raised Catholic, and then I spent I explored paganism for a while in my late 20s and sort of my 20s era. And then I was into New Age for maybe a couple of decades. I'm not really sure of the timing. And then I stepped out of all of that. And now I'm an animist. I'm just really connected with nature. And I do think there's spiritual energy in all things. So that's a little context. Being a religiously tolerant person, I'm okay with going into like with religious ceremonies or classes or events. And so I went to this Catholic conference where they were having speakers on a variety of topics. And I said, my nerd brain said, continuing education because of the work that I do. There was one speaker, a woman, and I'm not even recalling her name right now, and I wouldn't even want to, I tend to not name names anyway. She is an author, an established author within the Catholic spheres. She writes about exorcisms because she has basically been an exorcist assistant, we'll call it. There's probably an official name for it, but she's a lay person. So she's in the Catholic Church. Obviously, she's not a priest. Priests who are male are the only ones who are allowed to do exorcism. So I'm not saying that I agree with that, but that's how that is. So she, for many years, has assisted with exorcisms. So she was doing a talk for this whole big auditorium of people. And here's what I found fascinating. So she said that she went on a trip to Rome, and she was with people from her church. I think her parish priest was there with them. And so there was this small group, and they were walking along. They were getting ready to go to St. Peter's Cathedral, and they're walking along, and outside, she explains that outside there were different booths of local people, and that there was a woman who was selling what she described as pagan items, witchcraft items, And the way she described her, I think she was simply a local Romani woman who was practicing the old ways. That was my interpretation. But the author, the Catholic author, described how angry she felt that this woman would be selling her wares so close to the cathedral. And she was so mad. And she explained that she stood there and she stared at this woman, at the local woman, and she was like giving her, I'm going to say, the evil eye. Okay, she didn't say the evil eye. I'm saying she was giving her the evil eye. And the local woman met her gaze and did not look away. She was not ashamed of representing her cultural ways. And I don't know if words were exchanged. They didn't speak, the author didn't speak Italian. So I don't know if any words were spoken, but it was this eye contact. Okay, so the woman, I applaud her. She did not look down. She met her gaze and she was like, no. Right? Okay, so the Catholic author thinks that she's in the right. And she's like, oh, how dare that woman be selling her wares? And then as she's talking to our whole auditorium of people, she explains that she goes into the church and she kneels down to pray, and they're all spending time there praying. And something happened to her. And she said, I just know that that woman outside cursed me. And she explained to us, so you know, curses are real. These are real things. That woman put a curse on me. Because what she was describing was that she was frozen. She couldn't move her muscles. She couldn't stand up. She couldn't speak. So the Catholic author was saying, I couldn't speak. I couldn't move a muscle. Something had overtaken me. And she said finally, like, they all got up, but she couldn't. They were getting ready to leave. And the priest came over and I think placed his hand on her and it broke the spell. Okay. So she's giving an example of like, this Romani woman cursed me, blah, 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 blah. So after her talk, I wanted so badly, but I try to not micromanage people in real life, but I wanted so badly to go over to her at her author's table, pull up a chair and say, ma'am, do you understand that you were the one who tried to curse the local woman? You gave her the evil eye, and all she did was bounce it back to you. You received what you gave out. But that was an example of someone who was totally in her religious construct belief system, fully believed that she was in the right, had no understanding at all that she was cursing someone else because she was within her belief system, therefore it's not a curse. And I find human nature so fascinating, and I found that so fascinating. And no, I didn't go over and micromanage her. I'm letting her have her own journey. So I just found it interesting. So what do you think about that? And Margaret says, Europe is historically full of religious precautions. Yep. Ofe says, I've read something recently in the Holy Book of a religion that sounded very much like a curse. So, and so just to point out, that religion that I was just speaking of, Catholicism, we don't think, like, that's a standard mainstream religion that most people don't think of, like a very religious Catholic woman cursing someone, or maybe we do. If we've had a bad experience, maybe we do. But a lot of times there are these blinders where people don't think that their religion, whether it's a certain flavor of Christianity or Islam or Judaism or fill in the blank, all the others. There's so many. There's literally, I keep forgetting the number, but there's literally thousands and thousands of religions that are practiced on the planet today, not just throughout all of history. So we kind of forget that. So, okay. All right. Let's get into the 5 examples. And by the way, I go into a lot more detail on this, just so you know. I go into a lot more detail with more than 5 in the self-study course, The Psychic Protection Solution. There's a lesson on this. There are lots of lessons in the self-study course. This is one of them, and that's what gave me the inspiration, because as I was creating this lesson for that course, I personally was like, wow, this is so fascinating. Like, I hadn't really thought of it like this. As I was brainstorming, all these ideas were coming to me. And so what I'm teaching you today is a shorter version of what's in there. Okay, so the first example of religious curse, first type of religious curse, is probably the type that you may have already thought of, because we've already talked about it. Prayers spoken with malicious intent, or prayers spoken in order to control. So prayers, in my humble opinion, should be used for blessing. That's just how I roll. I do understand, by the way, that we have just a variety of beliefs on the planet, and that there are many people who believe that cursing is not wrong. I want to just acknowledge that. But those of you who are drawn to my channel are probably not those folks. So sending good vibes to all those folks out there who believe that. But I believe that prayer, or even any kind of religious practices, should be used for blessing rather than for cursing or malicious intent. So prayers, so this type of religious curse would would also include prayers to control. This is especially common with our mothers. If we have a religious mother or grandmother or auntie, our family members who love us, they are praying that we'll return to the faith of our upbringing, even though that's not what we want to believe, or that we will choose the right husband that they like and not the one they don't like, or the right career. And it's this controlling factor that's going against our free will. So here are a few other examples of prayers spoken with malicious or controlling intent. Praying for someone's downfall. I've actually seen examples of that many times looking online at Christian services, where the minister is up front saying, like, please let so-and-so public figure fail. May they have their downfall. And everybody's like, amen, because they don't realize that's a curse. That's evil. That's evil. There are other ways that we can try to move things in the right direction that don't involve cursing. Again, that's my view. I understand not everyone agrees with that. To pray for someone's downfall, or to pray for them to become ill, or to pray for their humiliation or failure. Asking God to punish or destroy someone. Praying or calling for divine judgment. Asking angels or God to remove protection from someone. I hadn't really thought of that one before until I started brainstorming, but that is something that is done. So does anyone want to add anything? Can you relate to that one? Prayer spoken with malicious or controlling intent. Yeah, maybe in your past religious background, maybe did you do that, or did some of your peers do that? Or again, like I mentioned, a lot of times it's our family that does that because they love us and they're too enmeshed and controlling, and they're praying against our free will. Evelyn says, I love the topic, but your example, and there are lots more to give, I'm sure, but it always makes me feel so sad. Thank you, Evelyn. All right, we have, that's number 1. We're going to do 5. And then I'm going to give just a few small tips at the end. And the main part of this lesson is understanding the different types of curses. That's why we're here. Okay, number 2 type of religious curse. And just a reminder, I know I've brought up Christianity, and Catholicism specifically, but these can be practiced in any faith tradition, any of these things that I'm naming off, any faith tradition or any subset. Curse type number 2, condemnation by a religious community. So the entire religious community, usually led by the minister or whoever the leader is, the entire religious community declares that that person is spiritually corrupt, or that person is possessed, or that person is condemned. God condemns them, or that person is evil, even if it's not true. Even if all that stuff is not true, it's to harm them. The intention is to use the religious construct to harm the person. So it might involve whoever the religious leader is getting up front of all of the followers and saying and proclaiming this person is possessed by demons, or this person is condemned to hell, or they're evil, or they're spiritually corrupt. God hates this person. Okay? Again, the intent to use the religious construct, whatever the religion, to harm the person. So this includes public denouncement, group prayer circles against the individual. And that just blows my mind, but it happens all the time in religions that are assumed to be good. Group prayer circles against a person. And finally, declaring someone an enemy of God. So all of that is intended to harm the person. Before we go on to number 3, let's read a comment. Margaret says, my 2 cents worth. If the person who said the curse hasn't done anything to them personally, that curse will boomerang back to them. Yeah, I think that can happen. I think the story that I told about the Catholic author is a really good example of that. Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. Curse type number 3. Excommunication, banishment, or formal shunning. Can you think of any types of religious groups that will formally, and I know there are many, that will formally shun someone if they don't go along with whatever the religious construct is? Like, all their family and loved ones will no longer speak to them ever again for the rest of their life. I'm going to say that's a form of cursing. In Catholicism, there's excommunication. If you don't follow what the construct says you should follow, then the higher ups in the organization will say, you are no longer blessed by the church. You are pushed out. You are no longer allowed to receive the sacraments. You are no longer blessed by God. And historically, this like excommunication or formal shunning, whatever flavor it is, depending on the religion, it's historically believed to remove, it's believed to remove divine protection from that person. So for example, excommunicating a person, removing them officially from the Catholic Church, is a form of saying God is no longer protecting you. You're no longer under divine protection. And then the energetic and emotional effect is the person feels rejected, isolated, cut off from their spiritual community and support. And this type of religious cursing, excommunication, banishment, formal shunning, this type of curse is used to maintain conformity and to silence any potential dissent, because you don't want to be banished from the tribe or the group, so to speak. Yes, well, so wonderful you could be with us today, Ofa, and we'll see you in the replay. Cool. So before we go on to number 4 and number 5, I just want to ask you if you have any questions. And I will be answering those after number 5. Just putting that out there now because it takes a little while for your comments to come through. And we have Sophia. Hi from Sweden. Hello. Margaret, people who committed suicide wouldn't be allowed into Catholic graveyards. Yes, I think that's I don't agree with that. I think it's very sad. Obviously, well, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I don't agree with it, but I'm not the one that makes the rules for the Catholic Church, so I don't get to decide. But yeah, it's like cursing the person even after their life is over. What you're pointing out, Margaret. Yeah. Like this person didn't do it the right way, didn't do things the right way, therefore we banish them. They're not even allowed in the afterlife. They're not even allowed to be in the same graveyard with their family members. Yeah, good example. Okay, so I'm welcoming any other examples and any questions that you might have that are related to today's topic. Number 4 type of curse, and this is the one that I might have thought of as well as number 1. Remember, number 1 was praying against someone's free will, praying to harm someone. Number 4 is one that I would have also thought of right off the bat. Religious practices used as rituals intended to curse. So, for example, using a candle ritual where the focus is to harm a person. So if we're talking about just like our standard mainstream religions, candles are used in, are pretty standard in some of those faiths. And then we have like other faith systems where part of the religion, so part of the religion involves various rituals. Some rituals are for healing. Some rituals are for cursing. And so it's important to understand that there are many religions out there that have, as part of their construct, an equal framework of using the rituals for healing and using the rituals for cursing. Like, it's considered that you are supposed to be able to do both. Again, as you might guess, I don't agree with that construct because I spend all my time every day, every week, helping people who've been harmed by those practices. So and also I'm a good person and I don't believe in hurting people. So for both reasons. Oh, Margaret says, thankfully that is no longer the case. I am glad to hear that. Honestly, I have not kept up on the nuances since I stepped away from being a Catholic a few decades ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. So I'm really glad that people who've committed suicide are allowed in the graveyards now. So I'm glad they've loosened that. Number 5 might be one that you haven't thought of. And this one fascinates me. Number 5 type of religious curse would involve deliverance or exorcism rituals without consent. Without consent. So let me just clarify in case you don't know. Deliverance and exorcism are basically the same thing, but just in different religious practices. So exorcism, most people know that's within the Catholic construct. It's driving out demons using Catholic prayers. Deliverance is outside of the Catholic construct, and this is where whether it's a minister or a lay person, a regular person, or a group of people are praying over someone to cast out demons or evil spirits or evil presences, etc. And these are intervention ceremonies meant to override a person's will. And specifically, this is when no consent is given. So I would not consider it a curse if someone raises their hand and says, please, can you do deliverance prayers over me? And that happens quite often in church services and various religious services. A person will volunteer and ask for that, and that's totally fine. That's part of the belief system. It is their right to ask for that. But there are many situations where, let's say, I'm going to just make up an example. Let's say there's a teenager who's having behavior problems at school and at home. And so their parents have decided that means that they've been under demonic influence, when that's not even the case at all. The kid is just like maybe rebelling because their parents are a little too extreme, or they're just being a normal teenager or whatever. But in this case, there's no actual demonic influence, but the parents and the rest of the congregation are projecting their beliefs that this kid has demonic influence. And so the kid is made to stand in front and receive deliverance prayers against their consent. That would be an example. Or let's say there's someone who's very ill. Maybe they're deathly ill, or they have a chronic illness, and they haven't been able to heal from it. And within the construct of their family's religious beliefs or the beliefs of whatever church that they happen to go to, all the people have decided, it must be demonic influence or evil spirits that are causing this person to be ill, or maybe they can't walk, maybe there are mobility issues or whatever the health issue is, and we need to pray over this person without consent. If they say, please pray over me, I think there might be some spiritual warfare. That's one thing. But I've heard so many stories of, someone who's going through cancer and they go to church because that's their faith community. And then, or they go to a church potluck or something. And then all of a sudden there's all these people doing deliverance prayers on them without their consent. And it does feel like a curse. And there was one woman who told the rest of her family, she was like, get me out of here. Like, I'm going to lose my mind. Get me out of here. She felt completely violated. And it was like a curse upon her. And so do the other people mean well? Yes, but I'm just going to say they're being idiots, because consent is important. You don't just do that. You don't just start. Anyway, I could go on and rant. So let's look at comments. Let's see. Margaret says, wondering on your take on ancestral curses moving in the family line. Yes. So since we're speaking, okay, I'm going to answer this, a couple different ways. First of all, I absolutely do believe in ancestral curses and spiritual warfare moving through family lines. And I've dealt with it in my own family lines. And there has been a shit ton of layers of stuff that I've had to clear from my own family line that was impacting me. So I absolutely believe it. And I've worked with many clients who've dealt with ancestral curses. And because of that, we have a whole section on that in the self-study course, and in an even larger section in my group mentoring program. So it is part of what people need to work on. Like, usually my approach with people is usually, if they're dealing with spiritual warfare of any kind, they work on getting their head above water by reducing the immediate onslaught of negative energy, and then they start to work on root causes so that it's easier to manage things on a day-to-day basis. Ancestral curses can be one of those root causes. Now, since today's topic is about religious curses, you may have meant, can there be religious curses that run through an ancestral line? Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so everything that we just talked about, all the 5 different types, any of that can impact a family line. Let's say banishment, excommunication, formal shunning. Let's say past family members have been completely excommunicated from a particular religion. That is going to have a curse-like ripple effect to some extent on the people following after in the ancestral line. That's an example. Evelyn says, I was once cursed by a spiritual teacher. I had this huge bruise on my aura, and it took me 6 weeks to recover. I'm sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, it's very common for spiritual teachers and healers to curse their clients / followers. And it's very wrong, but it happens a lot. And I'm glad that you're better now. Yeah. Okay, let's go over a couple of tips. Let me check on the timing right now. Perfect. Good timing. I think we'll be finishing at about an hour. 3 tips. So if you feel that you are dealing with any type of religious curse against you, first thing that you want to do is name it. Recognize the situation. Naming the situation reduces confusion. So I'm going to use an example that's probably the most common theme of what could happen to people. Of course, any of these types of curses can happen to people, but the number 1 on the list is probably the most common, where people are praying against your free will. So you name it. You say, I know that Aunt Joni is praying for blah, 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 which is against my free will. So you get it clear in your head. And so you're not cursing her. You're just saying, this is what I know is happening, or this is what I suspect is happening. You name it. Step number 2, revoke. What you do, what you do is you revoke access and you revoke consent. So you could write this down if you want to. So you would say something, you could either speak aloud in a voice of authority or write it down and do a little ritual. I no longer consent to their projections, judgments, or control. I no longer consent to their projections, judgments, or control. And of course, you can change the words accordingly to what is best for that situation. Okay? And so simply revoking consent, revoking access. If I were to word it differently, I might say, I no longer receive those negative prayers. I am no longer available to receive those negative prayers. Not receiving. No, I no longer have responsibility to receive their intentions. I don't need to carry their desires for them. So you could brainstorm, you could word it however you want. And then step number 3, if you feel that you're really struggling with curses that have been placed upon you, whether it's directly to you or, as was pointed out so well a little while ago, through your ancestry or even your past lives, then I invite you to consider working with a framework to help you. And this could be either with the Psychic Protection Solution, which is my self-study course that you can go through step by step to help release those curses, or the group mentoring program, Spiritual Empowerment Academy. And there's a method that I teach in both programs that is it's actually at the beginning, so you don't have to wait very long to get to it. It's at the beginning of the Psychic Protection Solution. It's within the first couple of weeks of lessons, learning a method that's a more official, fleshed out way of revoking access and revoking consent that I just described. Has a few more steps to it, and it's a really great way to bounce that energy off, whether it's a religious curse or some other type of curse. So I think we are all done. I do have a couple of really cool announcements, so stick around. But just last chance for comments. So a couple of announcements that I think you'll be really interested in. The first one is that now that I'm done creating the self-study course, because I was spending a lot of time on it and I didn't have time to do as many videos for the channel. But now I've had more time, a little more space where I can create more videos. So starting from now on, for the foreseeable future, every Thursday there is a new video released. So the first Thursday at this time, whatever time zone you're in, whenever this class started for you, it's noon Pacific for me. The first, I think I might have said Tuesday. If I did, scratch that. We used to do Tuesdays, not anymore. Thursday, the first Thursday of the month is always a longer class. It's a YouTube live where I come on and I teach just like this. And then the other Thursdays, not Tuesday, Thursdays are a video that I've uploaded. So it'll be between 5 and 20 minutes of a teaching, and it will be live. It's pre-recorded, but it's a premiere. It'll be launched at the same time, noon Pacific. So every Thursday, a new video will come out, and you can come on at that time and watch alongside other people, or you can watch whenever you want to. Once it goes live, then you'll be able to watch the replay afterwards. So awesome. And I'm very excited to share information with you guys about the upcoming topics that we have. Yesterday, I literally was inspired to spend the entire day brainstorming and writing notes in my notebook for all of the topics. And I was just brainstorming. I didn't realize until I was done, I ended up creating all of the topics and the notes for all of the YouTube lives through the end of this year. So you want to know what's coming next? You want to know what we're going to do? Okay, it's going to be really juicy. And there's a variety of topics. So there's something for everybody. I'm going to read off of my notes. So June 2026, the 3 life areas most affected by negative spiritual interference. Do you know what those are? The 3 life areas most affected by negative spiritual interference. Do you know? Do you? I'm going to tell you: relationships, money, and health. And we're going to talk about how spiritual warfare can try to take those down. And then also in June, I'm being interviewed by a podcast where we're going to talk about some aspects of illness and spiritual warfare. And I'm going to be talking about things that I've never talked about before. And so watch for that launching sometime in June. You'll see that. I'll repost it because it's not going to be on my channel. It'll be on the podcaster's channel, and then I'll share it with you guys. So totally new information about the nature of illness as it relates to spiritual warfare. July's YouTube Live: is your money being disrupted by a psychic attack against you? Is it? Do you suspect? Do you think it is? August. Now it gets really interesting. False twin flames and interference by dark forces. And most people nowadays know what twin flames is about. It's about relationships, romantic relationships. September, the dark triad: narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, and their role in spiritual warfare. October, failed New Age prophecies. And I'm going to talk about one of them being 5D Earth Ascension, the 5D thing that New Age is talking about. I'm going to talk about not just that one, but a whole list of New Age prophecies that are completely failed in the past, historically. So I'm gonna go back to the 1970s and talk up from there until present. Drum roll, please. November, YouTube Live: are we living in a simulation? And you guys have been asking, some of you have been asking for that one for a while, and I'm super excited about that one. All of these, very excited. And we take December off because a lot of people are busy with the holidays, and I give myself a little break as well. So I just want to say thank you for joining. Another shout out to those of you watching the replay. Definitely feel free to share your questions and your stories in the comments. If you haven't noticed, I do read your comments, and I try to reply. I reply or respond to a lot of your comments and your questions. So, yes. Oh, Esther says, hey, Maya, I am listening. Thanks for the free live. All right. So we are all set for today. Perfect. So wonderful. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel. And if you're still here, if you haven't left yet, I just want to say, this channel historically has been shadow banned for a very long time, which means that the algorithm is set to block people from seeing these videos. And because I speak about what is true rather than what is popular. So I welcome you to work against that shadow banning by doing things like clicking the like button on videos, watching videos, even like extending the time that you're watching videos, like just have it playing while you're washing dishes or whatever, making comments on the videos or even sharing them with friends. And the whole purpose of this YouTube channel is to help get this information out. Obviously, with the tiny viewership that I have, like, I think so this is not about me wanting you to make me money. I think I earn $5 a month or something from the channel. And people clicking a few likes isn't going to really change that. So this is not about helping me. I want to be clear about that. When you help to work against the shadow banning of the videos, it helps other people like you to be able to find these videos. And that's what we want, for more people to be helped with the truth. Esther says, I don't believe we live in a simulation. Otherwise, we couldn't do magic. Cool. I can't wait to talk about it. I have some interesting stories to share and some interesting perspectives, and you'll have to wait until November to hear what I really think about it. So, and Esther says, well, really looking forward to those topics. Thank you so much, everybody. And definitely keep an eye on the channel. Every Thursday, a new video is going to drop. And you may have already noticed on the channel that I've already scheduled videos through the end of the month. You can go to my channel and you'll see all the videos that are coming. There's some really good ones. Okay, I think we're going to close out for today. As always, I'm sending you lots of love. Until next time.